Although the majority of you will doubtless be familiar with this news, in the kerfuffle of Gran Turismo 7's latest update, as well as learning about Spec 3 in December, there kind of wasn't the moment to talk about Forza Horizon 6 news, and then, to be honest, I totally forgot about covering it the week after. So now I'm finally dropping some thoughts on this, as well as a couple of things which I'm curious about when it comes to moving forward, and also some hopes or expectations which I have from the game itself. Now, for those who have perhaps missed this somehow, this is of course the teaser trailer that you can see in the background. It's pretty much all we have to go on at the moment, and even if you go to Forza's own website, there's not a huge amount extra in terms of details. What we do know though is unfortunate, at least for those like me who much prefer playing Forza Horizon 5 on the PlayStation 5 rather than the Xbox. In terms of the rollout of the game though, it is dropping in 2026, presumably later in the year, because we're getting our next significant details about Horizon 6 in early 2026, so of course we should expect a decent window between that information, more trailers, and when the game actually drops. I would assume probably fairly late in the year for the Christmas sales kind of period. The unfortunate part is though, for those like myself who prefer the idea of playing it on a PS5 for example, that is rolling out later on. So it is rolling out, which is great, but later on could be a vast amount of time. It could be a couple of months, could be a couple of years, because of course we are years down the line from when Horizon was out on the Xbox in Horizon 5 form to now finally for the first time ever having it on a PlayStation. And further compounding that point, you can already wishlist it on PC and on Xbox, but you cannot wishlist it on the PlayStation. Now, one of the things that I find curious about, in particular, the choice of delaying the PlayStation 5 version, and that certainly could change even as soon as early 2026, for example, when we have more news, we could learn, for example, what that window is between the Xbox and PS5, so there's no point in conjecturing too much, we'll have to just wait and see. The reason why I find it curious, though, is because, as for example Tyrone Magnus has featured on his channel fairly recently, and I'm sure plenty of others as well, Microsoft is, it would seem, according to a reliable insider who has leaked reliable stuff before and has been verified before by other employees, well, apparently the next generation of having an Xbox console at all is very much up in the air, with apparently more of a focus on games and publishing rather than actual hardware. That's in addition to news of future layoffs within Microsoft and the future of the system just being quote-unquote up in the air in general. The reason why I find that curious is if your future plans for something like the console or future generations of the console are up in the air, why would you still be pushing the Xbox more than the PS5? If anything, it seems to me like you would want to be pushing, if you really do want to be pushing those games and software side of things, surely you would want to have as many PS5 people buying it as well as soon as possible. With that all by the by though, in terms of the game itself and expectations therein, there are certain things which you can safely assume are more of a focus, I would imagine, when it comes to like season pass cars and DLC, when it comes to the JDM market. They've done a good job in every game of pretty much featuring a bit of everything to kind of cover all the bases. I would expect certain cars which are more like VIP pass vehicles or seasonal rewards to be more accessible in the game. Stuff like maybe the Nissan Stager, Nissan POW B1s, you know, these little K cars and various other things like that. I would say there's probably a decent chance of seeing maybe some new brands drop in there. I for one would love, of course, something like Daihatsu to drop, get more K cars in there. We have a few, the Autozam AZ1, Nissan S-Cargo, that kind of stuff, but you know, I'm talking like Mitsubishi Minicas and Daihatsu Cores and you know, Suzuki Alto Works. In fact, having Suzuki back at all would be pretty nice at this point because they did used to be featured, no longer. One of the reasons, in fact, why I created the thumbnail as it is because I could certainly see Toyota and GR having even more of a push. Of course, there are some in there, but again, they're more the seasonal kind of rewards, like the GR Yaris, very popular with players, but not the easiest of things to access for most players, and even something like the new GR GT car. I could certainly see that being some kind of hero car or a cover car, and none of this is really crazy in terms of speculation or conjecture. It's probably what a lot of people are sharing thoughts on. I, for one, am really hoping that some of the deeper cut references, almost like Gran Turismo 2 style or Tokyo Extreme Racer style, could end up in there. Four-door Nissan R30 Skylines, or like my favourite Japanese car, period, the DB8 Integra, which is basically a DC2 Integra Type R but in four-door form. You know the kind of stuff I'm talking about. The kind of stuff where it doesn't really matter if it's the quickest thing around, you just enjoy driving it. It's got that kind of motorway cruiser sort of vibe. I'm certainly really looking forward to seeing how they have the map in the game. Personally, I'm a big fan of the Horizon 5 map. I know a lot of people don't necessarily seem to like it as much. I don't personally get that. I think it has a pretty nice inclusion of different biomes. It will be curious as well to see what kind of tie-ins the game has. Of course, with Horizon 5, you've got the rally stuff, you've got the Hot Wheels stuff. It'd be interesting to see what direction they go in with Horizon 6 in that regard. In terms of the future of Forza, because much like the Xbox, there's been a bit of conjecture about that moving forward, even like Forza being a thing. And from what I've heard, although motorsport, much like Fallout 76, has gotten better over time, I still personally have little to no desire to try out, just doesn't look like it appeals to me really. And Horizon is just fun, you know, it kind of gives me what I was hoping for from TDU Solar Crown, which that game unfortunately just sorely lacked. On the point of TDU, I actually have one thing which I would really love to see happen in the future of Forza. I don't necessarily think it will, but I really think it should. Certainly if you want to reinvent what this series is capable of and to broaden the amount not only to do in the game, but also further broaden the audience as well. And this is to essentially take up the mantle of TDU. They've already done that to some degree. Horizon kind of is this era's Test Drive Unlimited, really. The Forza Horizon series, even in terms of where it dropped in the timeline from the first game in relation to TDU2 back around, what was it, 2011 in the case of TDU2, it kind of did pick up the baton and really run with it. Some elements of Project Gotham, some elements of TDU, and then just evolved more and more from there. The crew as well, I guess you could say, and various others. What I would really love to see though is to go full in on the TDU side of things in a way that even TDU2 and certainly Solar Crown have not, and that is simply put, motorcycles. Well, I would love to see motorcycles join the fray in Forza. We have some reference to motorcycles within the game, such as most notably the motorcycle engine swap for some of the smaller vehicles, but that's about it really. You've got stuff like the little Azetta bubble car, which is about the closest you can get to it, but I'm talking actual bikes. And if you think about it, they could probably team up with another studio, which would benefit both studios really, to implement the physics in a way that would work within the game. For example, join forces with the team behind Ride, for example, Milestone. They wouldn't necessarily have to, but you'd have to think that that would give you a pretty good leg up if they ever were to do something like that. Why not corner that side of the market when, for example, Kaz has, not too long ago, it's probably like a year or two now at this point because time flies, no real intent of making the Tourist Trophy 2 until stuff like rigs can make it realistic enough with VR and, I don't know, some kind of rig where you can lean into a corner or something stupid like that. I mean, the whole point is that it's a game. At the end of the day, you want to make it accessible not only for the people who want to put the massive amount of extra cash into buying something like that, which would be by definition brand new tech. We're not just talking about using a racing wheel here, it would have to be something significantly different. In the case of Forza, well, you know they wouldn't care that much about that because the game is fun first, which I think is great. There are plenty of games which go in for realism. This one can be more of the ground of fun, and having bikes I think would be a pretty cool next step for Forza. That's it for my personal thoughts on that one though, as well as some conjecture on the future, and the only real disappointment to me is just having to wait for the PS5 version. That could change, but it is a bit of a strange choice in my opinion. Drop yours down below, and of course I'll see you in future with more, as well as in sometime in early 2026, whenever the next news or new trailer or whatever does indeed drop. But for now, thanks for watching.